All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our AI at AU Forum. Today, we have Dr. Brenda Ortiz and Dr. Mailson Oliveira with us. They're going to be talking to us a little bit on the role of artificial intelligence and digital agricultural culture. So please join me in welcoming them.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to represent Auburn University College of Agriculture on this forum. And I would like to take a few minutes of this presentation to provide a little bit of background of digital agriculture and precision agriculture, where we are, in this arena. And after that, we would like to highlight 3 study cases where we have been using machine learning algorithms to address some of these big issues in row crops agriculture. So when I talk about agriculture, most of the things that we will be showcasing today is focused on row crops agriculture. That means production of corn, soybeans, wheat, peanut, cotton, which are, some of the major crops here planted in the Southeast. Even though I have the flag of, production agriculture, I think that there are tremendous opportunities to join efforts to work on transdisciplinary projects to address these big challenges that we have in agriculture today. We really need to increase the efficiency of the operations. When you talk to industry, if you work in industry is very focused on how we can optimize this operation. So if you talk to a farmer around the world, the farmer is very much focused on increasing profitability, of course, because that's a direct link to their bottom line, okay? But a lot of times, they don't look into how we can optimize the efficiency of these particular practices. And when I talk about efficiency, it's the efficiency of input use, water use efficiency, nitrogen use efficiency, land use efficiency. Should we keep planting over and over on some areas that have very low productivity? So this slide that I'm displaying right now provides the latest report from United Nations that highlights the challenges, but also the opportunities that we all have to contribute to agriculture towards mitigation and reduction of the impact that sometimes agriculture has on the environment. So we have a big challenge when we talk about also climate change. The issue of climate change is not disconnected from any one of us, So yes, climate change imposes some risk to agriculture, but some of the operations that we have on agriculture also contribute and will contribute, to exacerbate the impacts of climate change. So, but when we talk about digital agriculture and digital ag technologies, we need to be thinking on using and identifying new technologies and practices to optimize crop production. And optimization means not only increasing productivity, but increasing efficiency. We also need to use the technologies to monitor, track, and report those practices and those processes. Why to monitor, to report, and to track? Because we need to be able to do benchmarking. We need to be able to figure out, how much progress am I making towards increasing efficiency? So we need to have some sort of indicators, and for that we need to have data. But the technologies today in agriculture allows the real-time collection of thousands and thousands of observations. you know? So how can we use this data to strengthening sustainability and adapting and mitigating toward climate change and again, increasing efficiency? I know that there are a lot of faculty across campus that are looking at agriculture, and even students, you know, I don't know much about digital ag, but I want to see how I can plug in and contribute towards digital agriculture. But the other, I would say, misconception that a lot of people have is they think that digital agriculture are drones, you know, and you know, drones is only a very small component of digital agriculture. I really would like for you to take a look at this slide. And again, I'm bringing very recent data. This slide is from 2022 from the World Economic Forum, where they are looking at digital agriculture with a very systemic approach, you know. So I would like for you to take a look at the 4 clusters of digital agriculture that are necessary, that are working in tandem, you know, to strengthening sustainability and adaptation mitigation to climate change. So there are 4 clusters. One is the foundational technologies. The other one is the enabling technologies. The other cluster is decision-making technologies, and the other one is sensing and control technologies. And if you look at all these clusters, there are faculty on campus that are working, you know, one way or the other on different components, even if they are not working directly on agriculture or towards a specific application in agriculture. And you see that I added some emojis, you know, so little people in red. But I would like for you to look carefully at the action of these little emojis, you know. So I will say that a lot of the focus of digital agriculture technologies that have been developed today have been focused on measurement and reporting. You know, if you look at sensors installed on a grain combine, you know, or sensors installed on a cotton picker, those sensors are recording data, measuring, you know, yield, crop yield, you know, on the go and across the field. As the combine traverse that field is recording yield. So we are measuring and reporting. There are tremendous progress on that. But also there is progress on big data analytics applied to ag. There is progress on AI, but you see that little person, the way I'm representing that person is not running. That person is walking, and perhaps is walking very slow. So what I'm trying to convey is that there are tremendous opportunities, but perhaps we are not moving as fast as we should. If you look at other fields, you know, the other industries, there are tremendous progress and applications of AI and big data in these sectors, not much yet in agriculture. You see that I have other little emojis that are running. They are running in this slide. So there are tremendous progress on sensing technologies, and you will see that on my subsequent slides. All these sensors and automation that are already embedded in farm machinery that allows the on-the-go sensing and on-the-go reaction. So there is tremendous progress there. So there is a lot of room for improvement. You can see there is a lot of room for collaboration and opportunities. Would like to highlight some of these advances in opportunities so you can get an idea of where we are. So in this particular slide, this is what we call in agriculture a planter row unit. You know, The planters that are planting right now in Alabama, planters planting corn, have different row units. You see, in a cornfield, you have planter rows. We have planters that plant 6 rows at a time, 12 rows at a time, 24 rows at a time, 48 rows at a time, okay? Each one of these planter units have a lot of sensors today. This is the example of technologies developed by a company called Precision Planting. And this planter is a we call it a smart planter. So there are sensors like this one that has a near infrared sensor on the tip of this sensor. And as this planter moves towards the field, it's collecting data in real time that is providing a lot of information for the farmer. So as soon as the farmer finishes planting, he can look at this particular map, okay? So, and also, all these sensors are providing data in real time to that operator. It's either the farmer or is a person that works for that farm. And all this data that you see on the screen of this monitor is being reported in real time. So the farmer can make adjustments, or he or she can even diagnose some problems that are occurring during the time of planting. This data for what? Data to make adjustments on the go, but also analyze what we did, or analyze what are the things that I can do, not only in season, but the next year. So the next slide is the progress that companies have made on spraying technologies. Okay, so right now, there is a lot of tremendous developments on selective spraying. You know that you have the rows where you have the crop, but you have weeds in between. And weed management is extremely important. So if we want to increase the efficiency of the spraying operation, you don't want to apply a uniform rate of herbicides or fungicides, but do selective application. So there are multispectral cameras mounted on the boom of this sprayer, okay? And there are already that machine vision algorithms, AI, and multispectral cameras that are identifying the weed different from the crop and just applying herbicide or pesticides where needed within the field or in real time. Yield monitors, this is nothing new, but I want to show the opportunities that we have. So any grain combine that is being purchased today is coming with a yield monitor. That there are many sensors installed on that combine that allows the recording of yield, and not only yield, but grain moisture and many other data variables. So this is the example of a yield map, thousands of observations, coming out of that field. And the differences on this map represent differences in yield. So you can see the range of variability within field variability on that particular field. And that suggests that the farmer should change management. That means different plant populations, or different nutrient management, or different irrigation management. So you will see this field later on my presentation, because we have been collaborating with this farmer over the last 6 years on how we can use digital data coming from digital technologies to change management. And talking about data, all this data that is being collected from farm machinery, also data that we can access through remote sensing imagery, is being utilized by the crop consultants that are providing recommendations to the farmers. This slide shows the changes in how crop consultants are providing better recommendations and how they are integrating the data that is being collected through this farm machinery into their development of recommendations related to phosphorus and potassium. You can see on the slide, you see the different the percentage of dealers that are increasing the use of data in their operation to provide recommendations to multiple, I would say, decisions that the farmers take during the growing season. Now I will move into 3 study cases highlighting the use of machine learning algorithms into row crop management. So the 3 cases that we will highlight is AI supporting irrigation water management. Dr. Mailson Oliveira will share the work that we are doing using machine learning for yield prediction. And the last one is also related to yield prediction and peanut maturity. So peanut, the production of peanut is extremely important for the Southeast. Alabama is the 2nd producer in the US and one of the biggest players. So there are a lot of opportunities for us to help the Alabama farmers. I would say probably the Southeast peanut farmers, which are the players in the US. So precision irrigation is extremely important. We need to identify strategies to optimize when to irrigate, how much to irrigate, and how much, where, within a field. So a lot of technologies right now are being developed for that. One of them is soil sensing technologies. So farmers now can install soil sensors in a field to look at the daily changes in soil water and also daily changes in plant water use. And based on this data, decide when is the right time to irrigate and how much. Why? With that information, farmers could minimize over application or under application of water. And you see, I have, some pictures of examples of center pivot irrigation, which is the main irrigation system used by row crop farmers in the US. We have used artificial intelligence specifically in this particular paper. We have evaluated the use of long short-term memory neural networks for the prediction of volumetric water content. We wanted to know if we can train this neural network for the prediction of irrigation. And we went one step forward, and we not only wanted to see the performance of this particular model, but also the variables and the way you train that model. Because sometimes some students, they just put data in a black box without really knowing what's happening, and they get an output. But are we overfitting, that model? So that's what we have done. So we work training this neural network on under two different soil conditions. Because if we talk about irrigation water management, the recommendations for irrigation is going to change depending on the soil type. Okay, so we train the model using a lot data from multiple sensors, 2 years, and hourly data observations. So this data set is very rich. This is an example of the data that we use to train those models. So you see the lines on these particular graphs. This data is almost, the soil moisture data is a 30-minute resolution soil water content data. So it's a lot of data, again, from multiple locations and 2 years. So we ran 3 experiments. The first experiment was using data at 3 different soil depths from soil matrix potential sensors. We use rainfall data and we use the amount of irrigation that was applied and the 2 management zones. That means 2 different soil types. Then experiment 2 was 3 soil matrix potential sensors. And again, soil types. And experiment 3 is, okay, what if we don't tell the model how much rainfall we got or how much irrigation? We just train the model using the soil matrix potential sensors, which is data from the soil matrix potential sensors. And then we look at the parameters, but that's what is important for the students. You know, we look at, okay, what if we use 20 blocks, 40 blocks, 60 blocks, the dropout, the number of epochs, and the processing, this was the processing time that we use. So we use all these, perform these combinations of blocks, dropouts, epochs, and we look at these combinations over these 3 experiments. So these are I would say the results of this parameter evaluation. We look at what happened when we increase the dropout, when we increase the number of blocks, and when we increase the number of epochs. So, and you can see from the slide, you know, the sensitivity analysis when we change these parameters. And these are the results. So we have amazing results where we prove that using this particular model, we were able to predict with high accuracy what is happening with irrigation prescriptions. I will stop right now and I will invite Dr. Mailson Oliveira, who is a postdoctoral scientist in my lab, and he will continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I will keep talking about how we're using some of the artificial intelligence techniques to solve agricultural problems. So we see that machinery, these machines, they collect a lot of data. And here's my promise. I will show you 2 study cases that we applied AI to solve like real farmers' problems and the potential of these techniques to solve and improve like production quality. So we have a bunch of equipment in the field, and all equipment, they collect data. We have drones, we have combines, and we have all other machinery. But I will focus here on the satellites and the combines. That is the main purpose of the research that we developed. So with that machines, we collected some information, but generally the farmers, they don't use the full potential of that data. So generally, those combines, they collect data in a CSV file. So, and then we extract that to develop algorithms. And one information that the machinery collects, especially the combine, is the elevation. So with the elevation, with the altitude of the field, we can derive a bunch of other informations. And 2 key informations that in this project that would believe that could increase the accuracy of prediction, of yield prediction, was the topographic wetness index and topographic position index. So those derivatives from the terrain attributes are related to the water movements and water accumulation in the field, and also in the position of that particular point in the field related to the surrounding points. And so this project, I used that information the yield information and the derivative attributes from the elevation. And also I combine it with satellite imagery to predict yield. So, and I tested different approach on how to calibrate the model, because from a field perspective, the fields, they are not homogeneous. They are variable. We have field variability. And so something that we do in agriculture, we clustered that variability into smaller clusters that they are similar each other. And then we call that management zone. So here it's an example of these 3 clusters from a field that we cluster on 3. And so I have these 3 we call management zones. And so I tested this approach of calibrating models for specifically parts of the field instead of the general approach that we do, that is calibrating a model for the whole field, for like the whole county. And how we do the formalization of an agricultural problem to solve with machine learning. It's kind of the same that we do on other modeling, but here's the point. Our inputs, they need to be correlated with the phenomenon that we are trying to predict. In this case, yield. And the other example that I will show you, it's related to peanut maturity and peanut prediction. So in our input, we have these variables that we empirically know their relation with the biological phenomenon. And then here I use the spectral band that, as I explained, the TPI, the topographic position index, and the TWI. And for the peanut problem, I use it vegetation index. And vegetation index are formula equations that we can derive from the spectral band. So we calculate formulas, and each vegetation index are related to specific parameters of the plants. And so we have our output, which is for, I will show you the yield prediction problem, the maturity prediction, and the biomass, which is the peanut yield and peanut biomass. And so we have our target function, which is where we play around, like Dr. Ortiz said, with the different types of models, different type of algorithms, hyperparameters optimization, and then we have our data. And this data comes from different sources. And here is where we invest a lot of time, is like wrangling and combine all the data. And so to solve those problems that I'm going to show to you, I use this satellite data, the combined data, and then we have also field campaigns to collect some of our variables. For example, peanut, we don't have yield monitor, so we have to go to the field, dig the plants, and then we dig the plants, and then we collected that variables, and then we adjust in the models. And to use that, for the first case, for the corn application, I use it the auto machine learning approach, which is, like Dr. T said, black box, and auto machine learning is the black box of the black box. And for the second problem, for the peanut maturity project, I use it scikit-learn to use multi-target regression, and I use it the Python language programming. And for farmers' perspective, a metric to ensure occurrence in the models, and that we can relate it with also economics, and also something that we can explain to the farmers, is the mean absolute error, because the mean absolute error gives you the accuracy of the model in the units that you're measuring. For example, if our model has the error of 1.1 tons per hectare, so we can say that to a farmer, and they will understand the error of our model. And so this is the result of the first approach to predict yield. And so I tested that predicting for all that 3 management zones, creating specific models, and the whole few models, the traditional approach. And so what we saw is that when we use the general approach and when we calibrate models for specific parts of the field, we can reach a better accuracy. And also, I tested the influence of integrating that satellite image with the topographic features. And so I tested spectral bands only, spectral bands with DPI, and spectral bands with TWI. And what we see is that when I add in my model topographic features, I can increase the accuracy. So here we have the best accuracy when we integrate the spectral and the topographic features. So that was like the main results of this research. And here, for management zone 2, which is a zone in the field that we have a low yielding zone, our model have problems to develop, to increase predictability. Because when you have a low yielding zone, we have other factors that are limiting the yield on that point. So, and then the yield cannot be explained only with spectral bands and topographic features. So, and then we might have to add other variables in the model to increase that predictability for that type of zones. And so another application is to predict peanut maturity. So peanut maturity, we can determine peanut maturity in a different ways, but the most common in farm operation is we dig the peanut, and then we scratch the peanut, and then we expose this, which is called mesocarp of the peanut, and then we classify that in a board. And so, and then we calculate an index that is called peanut maturity index. So, and to do that, it's very labor intensive. So here I pointed here, because when we are doing this project, we generally start in the morning, and here you can see it's night. So we start in the morning collecting samples, processing in the field, and then we go to classifying the lab. And so we spend a lot of time on that. And imagine farmers, they don't have that time to do all this sampling and processing with much points. And so we tried with this, develop a non-destructive way to estimate peanut maturity. So we use it for this particular field, we use it satellite data, only satellite data for that. And why we need to.
I had a quick question. With your maturity, there's a I guess the physical board that you're using.
Yes.
What are some different aspects or features of peanut maturity?
Could you repeat that?
But in terms of what?
I guess how do you
decision.
determine or distinguish between the different
So
types?
tell them what this dark and the light color peanut means in
Yes.
terms of maturity. That's
Yes.
something. It's great point.
Yes, great point. So we place the pods based on our classification. So we have different classes of maturity. So when the pod is white, here's the white class, they are under mature. And the pods get darker, it gets mature and ready to harvest. And so this classification it's done manually. So we have to look at each pod and find the right class and place in the board. And so
It's a manual, and I can run a classification myself. You know, my classification might not necessarily look like exactly as Mailson's classification, you know. Of course, if it's ready to mature, you might be lucky, and these two boards might look very similar. Okay.
and here we can see a classification problem. So, and why maturity is important for peanut? Because maturity is important because it's related with yield. And so here we have this this sample that we collected has 81% maturity and has a yield of 7 tons per acre, or 7 pounds per acre. And here we have maturity of 63%, and we have around 6,000 pounds per acre. And so maturity is also a key component to understand within field variability of yield as well. And so when we talk about yield with farmers, so they get interested because ultimately yield is money for them. And so here for this experiment, we used 2 fields, one close to Auburn and one close to Eufaula. So what we did, we used some terrain to classify the same way that we did for corn. We classify the clusters, and then we collected weekly sampling, and then we use the satellite data, the same formalization of the problem for the corn yield as well. And so for this particular project, we collected the samples weekly, and then we classify them. And then after we have the information for the field and information of the satellite, we create the algorithms to predict the maturity, the biomass, or whatever information using the machine learning algorithms. And so for this project, we used those derivatives from the satellite imagery, which is the vegetation index. And so we test different kind of feature engineering. We test different kind of bands, different kind of vegetation index, isolated vegetation index, combining them. So we test different features engineering like we do for other problems as well. So in here, we have the example of the prediction of pod weight and pod biomass. And so here we tested all these combinations using these algorithms, random forest and nearest neighborhood, to predict multi-target problems. And so here we can see that among all these combinations, like different vegetation index isolated, integrating spectral bands and vegetation index, we can see that using the pure satellite image only with the spectral bands without doing any calculations to create the vegetation index, we had the best accuracy to predict the pod weight and the peanut biomass. But the problem is when we develop a model, a machine learning model, is that sometimes the models, they don't take into consideration the biophysical aspect of the crop. And so here we can see that for predicting biomass, we can see that the performance was bad because was not that good. So we can see that the points are not close to the line 1-to-1. So the point is this, because the plant biomass accumulation is different for peanuts from the pod biomass accumulation. And so we don't have the same curve of accumulation that we have for pods. And so when we join together in algorithms to predict both variables, so we don't have the same variability, the same distribution as we have for other phenomena. So this is something that we learned from this experiment, and that's a key point when we are developing like machine learning algorithms for agriculture. And this is the prediction of maturity. So for maturity, we have like an error. We can predict like using among all these combinations. Also, we can use only the spectral bands to predict maturity with an error of 9%. So here, for maturity, there is a great potential to use like the machine learning algorithms and the satellite data to predict that variables. And so with these researches, we develop these integrative methods, for example, for corn, that we use combined data, we use satellite data to predict corn yield. And for the peanut maturity project, we are developing these AI non-destructive based algorithms that we can utilize satellite image to predict those biophysical variables like peanut maturity, biomass, and pod weight. So next time that you eat peanut butter, you can see that we also have artificial intelligence applied to peanut product.
Thank you so much. So as you saw on this presentation, you know, there are a lot of opportunities, also challenges that we have. And I would like to invite our colleagues, you know, across campus, you know, to think about these things and to think about our opportunities. But I will go a little bit further and I will say our role. What is the role, the type of role that we can play, you know, advancing agriculture and helping the locals, you know, again, the cotton and peanut are, you know, the largest, the Southeast is the largest producer of cotton and peanut. So, you know, there are a lot of opportunities, you know, for advancing and for innovation. So I know that Gary and I, and also, you know, the associate deans for research in the College of Engineering and in the College of Agriculture, we are already exploring opportunities to perhaps, you know, let's say, build more bridges or, you know, create these spaces, you know, for more engagement and interaction. And I would like to end my, you know, my presentation and perhaps take questions. I am a member of the board of the International Society of Precision Agriculture. A lot of you are interested on these topics, but you don't know, you know, which conference, what is the right forum to attend and learn more about what's going on. So I will invite everyone to attend the next International Conference of Precision Agriculture that will happen not very far away from Auburn next year in St. Louis, Missouri. So we have opportunities right there for presenting our work. Perhaps there will be some projects that we'll be initiating right now. And then from this group, from the Auburn group, so we all go together and present, you know, the good work that we are doing, and also connect with other, you know, scientists and industry across this. This is an international conference. It's very well attended from people from Europe and Africa, Latin America. So that's my invitation, and I will be happy to take questions if someone has. So thank you.
Very interesting talk. I had a lot of ideas come up based upon your talk, but I guess for farmers, when you see like one of the images you looked at, it was an image from like 2018, and it looked at there were different, it was a sort of like a data visualization that had red areas around the edges of the field. Now, is that real time enough for the farmer to know how to change their processes? Or this one corn year. And so with this information, how does it arm? Yeah. So how does it help our farmers?
So there are a couple of things, you know. If this is a yield map, that means this is the yield at harvest. Okay. So for marketing, yeah, let's say for marketing and selling, it's probably too late. The farmers sell the crop before harvest. A lot of them sign contracts before harvest because of the price. So if the price is good, they sell the produce, or at least they sign a contract. So if we can predict yield, earlier, and there are a lot of people that have done models the yield prediction on corn. It probably is one of the most common studies out there. So a lot of people have looked into prediction of corn yield. But what I would say what is more important than selling the crop is the type of how they can adjust management. But the adjusting of management is the next season. And that's when the challenge comes, but also the opportunities that we have. Dr. Mailson and I, and many other scientists, run into farmers that have been seated in years of yield data without being analyzed, without being used, without anything being done. The technology, they have the technology, but what a lot of farmers don't have is the time or the skills to analyze the data. So who is analyzing the data for the farmers in the Midwest? And there are also companies in Alabama, the consultants. So, but also the farmer that has a consultant and has a contract with a retailer who is the place where they buy the seed and they buy the fertilizer. So the retailers, these places that traditionally were traditionally selling fertilizer and seed, they have identified, I can provide, because the farmers were coming to them for advice. Hey, which seed do you think I should be planting? Which rate of fertilizer? So some of the retailers say, hey, I can charge for this service. So right now, the retailers, and this is data from the Midwest, I wanna emphasize that this is data from the Midwest. The retailers now charge for a recommendation, but the retailers have become the ones analyzing the data for the farmer. And then now we are entering into another territory of who owns the data, what is the price of the data, the ownership of that thing. We don't have time for that, but I think there are tremendous opportunities for developing decision support tools that farmers, themselves identifying, what to do with that data. The farmers are extremely smart, so we should not think of a farmer, even if there was a farmer in the 50s, in the 20s, they were smart at that time. So the farmers today are engineers, are business people, are agronomists, are even civil engineers. So they know what to do. They don't have the time and they don't have the tools. So the companies, the machinery companies like John Deere, for example, and this is this picture is from a class combined, but this John Deere is the largest farm machinery company. They have been developing tools for very simple analysis, like temporal analysis, temporal spatial analysis. But even though those tools are there, the farmers don't use the tool because the farmer perhaps that is very business oriented and is looking at how I can optimize this operation. That farmer is looking at this, or that farmer is paying a consultant to look at this for them. But the small farmer is not doing that. Yes.
Do you think potentially there's a case where the farmer is kind of scared of technology in the sense that they don't want, like, I don't know, their industry to be taken over by technology? And
The majority recognize that, this is I will gain. I will say perhaps, perhaps the farmers that have large operations, I think the average farmer, I won't think is gonna be scared of this. The largest one that is investing a lot, might be a little bit concerned, but there are already forums in the US. There is a forum that is called the Ag Data Coalition. That there are forums already that are where representatives from industry, from the farmers, from the universities are coming together to discuss these issues. Yes. Any other questions? Maybe someone in Zoom.
There was one statement in
Yeah,
Zoom.
there was a.
Okay.
Okay, and this is from Sylvia Vilches, and I hope I'm not saying that incorrectly. So I'm interested in Dr. Ortiz's way of organizing the influence of AI and opportunities. This discussion of the stakeholder, private operator ownership of data is relevant to me. So she just making a statement that she is interested in the way that you all are organizing the influence of AI and other opportunities.
And I will respond to our colleague Sylvia. And Sylvia, thank you for from this great question. The collaboration between engineering, agriculture, and social sciences is extremely critical, because the engineers, and I am an engineer, we have not been trained in the social science aspect. We don't have the training, we don't have the skills, and vice versa. So collaborating is extremely important to understand the barriers of adoption, to understand what we extension specialists need to be doing to better engage with them, to better understand them, to better identify those opportunities, and better, establish this mutual collaboration. So I would say that there are a lot of opportunities right there for more collaboration in these areas, definitely. Yes.
I have a question, and it's how many spectral bands were there? Were you using? I don't remember.
Yeah. So it will depend on the sensor that you're getting there. For example, you have satellites that can have like over 10 spectral bands, and you can also have sensors. This type of sensor that has fewer bands, they're called multispectral sensors. And we also have hyperspectral sensors that have a lot more spectral bands. For example, we work with a professor in the biosystem engineering. His sensor has around 80 spectral bands. So, and then your amount of data to work is a lot more. So it also has an issue with computation to working with that. So, and for that 2 projects that I showed to you, we used 4 spectral bands.
And just out of curiosity, you used a KNN and you compared it to random forest, and then the KNN won.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
which
surprising.
well, it happens quite a lot, but yeah, but I have a question. What was your K? What do you know the size of K was? Or was it really large or?
No, it was really small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the K,
Mhm.
but the issue is that when we use it, depending of the data set, the methods that use the distance to calculate the predictions,
Mhm.
generally for some agricultural problems, they win. Because the variability in the range is not that much. So if the predictions are really close each other, so they will get good predictions. We have some case when working with KNN,
Mhm.
then we have like the predictions are really similar to each other of the models. But when we calculate the performance metric, it's lower than the other algorithms because the data set doesn't have not only the data set, but the physical variable doesn't vary a lot as we should expect related to the others.
So, yeah, I guess that kind of was my question, was how you came to choose KNN and random forest as your models for this project.
So for this particular project, because, and this is the most common models used to deal with spectral data to predict, like, then generally is support vector machines, KNN, and random forest. And also the library offer only using KNN and random forest for multi-target regression.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, we want to thank Dr. Ortiz and Dr. Oliveira. All right, thank you so much.